On this episode of the Lighthouse Freedom Podcast, we are talking about how the work comes before the belief. Contradictory to what people are told, that belief ain't coming until the work is there. Awesome, man. So I think, we're coming out of the recession talk and talking about how you can create your own economy, right? And we talked a little bit about people that are in that W-2 might be in a little bit of that rat race, which is fine, as long as, you have that awareness, right? And we talked about that belief. Right. Now, when you make the jump or when you are starting to do the side thing that's going to get you out of the rat race, or it's going to get you that financial freedom that you're talking about, right? There's a big gap in time between you deciding that you're going to do it and, number one, believing that it's possible, and not believing that it's possible, people believing in you, I think is the big thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people you always have to believe that it's possible for yourself, but a lot of people want everyone around them to like believe in them before they've actually accomplished anything.
Yeah.
And I think that holds a lot of people back, is because they say they want this thing. They're like, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy, all this real estate, right? And I'm going to do all these deals, and they haven't done anything yet. And they want people to like just get behind them and say, you can do it, all this stuff. And then when people don't, they get deflated and they lose momentum, and they actually then just end up second guessing themselves. And so what I want to ask you is, like, in your experience, give me an example of like how you've had to put in a vast amount of work before anybody started to recognize, especially the people close to you, like, damn, he's serious. Like, he's actually doing this thing that he's talking about. He's not just this crazy guy that's got no job or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, like you said, can get stuck in that. They get stuck in this state of, people say there's three different types of people. There are those that dream about the thing. There are those that plan the thing, whatever that leap may be, whether, I don't care if it's a side hustle. I don't care if it's wanting $100 million company. I don't care if it's wanting to own an island so that you can help and give back and host retreats, whatever it is for you.
Yeah.
Right. People have either the dreamers or what I like to call the planners. They're whiteboarding the idea, they're talking to their friends about it, et cetera. And then there's doers. There is no other kind. Right. And in order to be the doer, I think it comes from just a massive, deep belief in self.
Yeah.
Big time. And, it takes a certain kind of person, a certain mindset to be able to do that. And I've experienced it a few times, and, jumping from, because I'd lived in the W-2 life for a while. And while there was nothing wrong with it, it did not match my belief in self and the things that I want to create for myself and for my family. So I was there, man. I mean, I was that person that had a pretty nice, cushy W-2 6-figure a year job. And I was on a plane with like my regional manager at the time. And I was reading a book called, it's kind of funny, reading a book called Leap of Your Life. And my manager at the time was on this plane with me, again, working corporate job. This is the W-2 gig. And he's a smart dude and a very aware dude. And his name's Michael Callender. If you ever listen to this, you're going to laugh. But he was like, not very inconspicuous, are you? And he knew then. He was like, Houston's leaving. Houston's going to go after something else. There's something else on his mind, on his heart. He's being pulled away. And I knew then that like people were going to doubt, like, what are you thinking, man? Like, this is what you wanted. You're in device sales and this is like a highly coveted career and all this stuff. But I had a deep belief in myself to go create something else. And honestly, Chad, I didn't even know what that was yet.
Yeah.
But I knew I didn't want to stay there. Right. And so it's that, like I said, there's the dreamers that think about it and they get in this like euphoric state. Like when you're dreaming about something, there's dopamine hits. They're like, boom, boom. Oh, that feels good. I'm going to do this. Wouldn't it be nice to fill in the blank? Then there's the planners, the whiteboarders. Then now you're like in that second phase of, oh, this is going to be good. I'm going to make this work. And then there's that like 5% of people that are like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I don't care what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about the attaboys. I'm not worried about spending 6 months living off of X a month just in order to make this work. and it's a deep, deep, deep rooted belief in self that you're going to be able to figure it out.
Yep.
Right. And then the results will come over time. But yeah, man, it's a great question.
And sometimes the results, like even putting in that work, even for 6 months, a year, 3, like however long it takes, like putting in that work, like you're gonna have doubts about it on a daily basis. It's like you don't just wake up jazzed up every day, especially when you're starting something new.
Yeah.
So knowing that you got to push through those down times when you might be doubting, because I had a similar story when I left Xerox. I was making 6 figures selling copiers, and I jumped into real estate full time. I had no freaking clue what I was going to do. I just knew I wanted to create wealth in real estate. And I started 3 companies that actually ended up going like failing. And like I had to like kind of cancel them and rebrand and restructure. But I learned more from those 3 failures than I did, from watching hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos or freaking whiteboarding all these kinds of crazy ideas. Like you just have to get out and go.
Yeah.
Because the failures are inevitable. And we talked a lot about this in season 1, is just moving from failure to failure, learning the lessons and taking them and then going and applying them to the next thing. Right. And, the other thing that I'll say, you talked about like a deep rooted belief in self. Where does that come from? Because, for me, understanding and keeping the promises that you make to yourself is what is like at the root of the self-belief and the self-confidence, which is what you're going to need in order to push you through the low, almost that low period of time before you start to see traction. And then before others start to notice as well.
Yeah.
And just keeping those promises that you make to yourself as little as they are, whether it's getting up early or flipping the shower on cold or following a diet, like it's the tiny micro promises that people break to themselves, which leads to the self-doubt, which leads to them not taking action, which leads to them staying stuck.
That's it. I think it comes from your habits that you create. The habits that you create are what actually creates the belief in self. So I think it's great to have goals. I think it's great to have ambitions, and you should set those. And I think what a lot of people miss is you should also create and set the habits, because without the habits, you are never going to hit those goals ever. If they're big and audacious, which we hope everyone listening has those, you're never going to hit them without the habits. And so I think for me, that's where that self-belief comes from, is not just the goal and setting the goal, setting your compass towards whatever that is, but then setting the habits behind it that are going to enable you to get there. And I do a lot of the things you mentioned, the cold showers, the extreme exposure to hot and cold. Shannon and I are actually going to buy a sauna for Christmas because we want to continue to be able to do that without having to go down the street to, restore wellness and do that. But it's nice. That's the stuff, man. It's like creating habits that are going to enable you to get to those goals. I think the same thing, Chad, about motivation. Motivation's great. It amps you up. You get fired up. I can become a very emotional guy. I'm a big motivator in other people. But it means nothing without the habits. And so I think that's where that self-belief comes from. Yeah.
I think that's why people come out of the Tony Robbins events or these seminars or the weekend things where they come out so jazzed up, and then Monday hits, and now the work starts.
Yep.
And it doesn't take long before they're just back to that deflated state.
Right.
Even after coming off that huge high. Maybe they run it for 2-3 days in a row, but you're talking about consistent actions over years.
Right.
Compounded.
Right.
That is what's going to ultimately do it. And that is what's going to ultimately allow you to look back and be like, damn, I can do anything because I was able to do that. And I didn't have anybody really believing in me, and quite the contrary. A lot of people are like, what are you doing? You got to get a job. You got to go back and get a paycheck. You don't have any money coming in. Those types of, a lot of it comes from a place of love from people that might be close to you.
Sure.
But that goes back to that conversation we were just having about where you getting that information. Would you trade places with that person?
Yeah.
Right? Have they started a business before? Are they running a multiple 7-figure business, 8-figure business, 9-figure business? Because if they're not, and that's what you want, why are you listening to them?
Yeah. I think that's a great point, and I want to touch on that. So if you think about the people that you take information from, right? So what you said is pretty awesome. So if you think about it categorically, right? So if you have someone in your life where this dude's just got an on fire marriage, And you can tell when him and his wife walk into the room, they come to the dinner, they come to whatever it is, family get together, poker night, whatever. You can just tell like the energy is there. It's on point. This person has a marriage that I would like to emulate, right? That's the person I'm going to take, marital advice from.
Yep.
Right. That same person may not be a great guy or woman to take financial advice from. So pick and choose, right? So, one of my mentors always says this, like you need to decide who you're going to listen to, right? Brittany Turner talks about this thing as well, which is, for you're a guy, if you laid out a financial plan for me, I'd be like, yep, I'll do that. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And then there's other people that you can pick and choose from in your circle of friends and your circle of friends and your network, who you can take advice from. If it's the person with the rocky marriage and they're up and down, it's a roller coaster of emotions, that's not my guy, it's not my girl.
Yeah.
Right. So be selective in who you take advice from.
Yeah.
If you don't want your life to turn out like theirs in that space, in that category, doesn't mean don't be kind to them, listen to them, but just kind of, that's for them, not for me.
You just take the advice on the topics in which you want the advice from, and you can listen to the other advice, but not necessarily take it and implement it.
Right.
Is what you're saying. Like,
right.
And I think that's why you and I both have multiple coaches. Like we have coaches in different areas of our life. Like my fitness coach is not also my money coach.
Right.
Like my real estate coach is not also my stock trading coach. Like,
right.
So you can have different people, but there is such thing as too many inputs. So be careful. Like I think a lot of people sometimes get caught in these algorithms where they're listening to so many different people that are in places that they want to be. Like, they're following Gary Vee, they're following, Ed Milet, they're following Grant Cardone, they're following like 25 other people.
Yeah.
And like, it's almost too much information.
Information overload.
Overload.
Yeah.
Whereas like focus on maybe, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 guys or girls that are, in those spaces in the different categories that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And like really dig into their information and their content. And like you said, I mean, be selective with what you choose to implement. For sure. I think that's a huge piece.
Yeah.
And then, you fast forward after you put in that consistent work, like, God, man, you fast forward. I mean, I'm in a place now, like I've been an entrepreneur since 2016. So what's that? 6 years now. And like now there's members of my inner circle and not inner circle now, but there's members like friends and family that I knew that are now like starting to message me like, what are you up to? And then I have, a couple cousins that are like, well, it looks like this thing's working. I'm like, yeah, it's fucking working. I've been working for what do you think I've been doing for 5 years, 6 years? I haven't just been playing patty cake with myself. Like I've been putting in the work, but that's the thing about that delay, that time delay before people start really buying into what you're doing.
Yeah.
You got to go out and accomplish something. And if I'm speaking candidly, it's pretty arrogant of you to expect people to believe in you when you haven't done shit.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You're out there like wanting people to like come buy into your thing. You haven't accomplished anything.
Yeah.
Why do you expect people to believe in you?
Right.
Go do something.
Right.
And then come back. Go produce a body of work that gives something people to believe in.
Right.
And I think, it's not sexy having to get there.
Not at all.
There's that.
Not at all. But you've got to be able to weather that storm.
Yeah.
You got to be able to go through that period of time. You said you've been working on your entrepreneurial journey for 6 years. That's a long time. A lot of people would not be willing to put in that time and the work. And eventually people will notice.
Sure.
Which is great. But, the nice thing about that is, we talked in season 1, like one hand up, one hand out. Then you can help other people. Yeah. Right. And some of those people, should you choose to work with them, they may say, Chad, this is working. What did you do? Yeah. Well, now we're given an opportunity to give back, which I think is awesome. And I'm starting to experience some of that myself. And it's, it's coaching clients. It's guys that are coming in through different avenues saying, hey, what did you do here? And how did you make that leap from this to this? And granular questions like, did you have 6 months saved up in order to do so, and all this stuff. And I love getting into all that information, but kind of going back to the anchor in the question that you had in the beginning, and the reason for this episode is you got to have the self-belief. And then furthermore, to also be candid, you have to not care. you can't care about that in between time. You can't care about
what people are saying.
The suck. Yeah. You can't care about, well, do they think Houston's going to fail at this? He should have just stuck to this orthopedic gig because he's not going to make it there. You can't care.
And the truth is, some people are rooting for you. That some people want to see it fall.
Absolutely, they want to see you fail.
Like there are so many eyeballs that you don't even see that are watching your stuff that are just waiting for you to stumble.
Can't wait.
And they're just waiting for it.
Yeah.
You got to get fuel from that.
Yeah.
Like knowing that there's people out there that want to see you is like drive and push to just, I'm gonna fucking do it, and they're gonna watch. I'm gonna light myself on fire. They're gonna watch me burn.
Absolutely.
Right? You know.
Yeah.
And I think what you just said is kind of the reason we're here. You know, we were just talking about how much, you know, it costs to produce this podcast on a monthly basis and keep it rolling and come in here and film and all that stuff. And we looked at each other and we're like, yeah, no doubt, we got to spend it because it's like the helping as much as we possibly can. And I don't care if one person listens to this, or 100,000 people listen to this, or 1 million people listen to this. Like, if one person listens to this, if I can say something that can help one person get out of a situation and into that next phase in their life, and then say like it was something that those guys said, you know, that helped me move forward through that. That's worth it. It's worth every penny.
Amen, dude. I want to pull out my phone. I'm not going to, but I text Shannon those very words this morning, because we had a discussion just about what we're going to talk about today. And, you know, she's a huge supporter of everything that we're doing. And she just likes to see me kind of step out and get uncomfortable, do something new, and hopefully give back. And, you know, some of the topics that we're going to get into, they're controversial. You know, we talked about it before getting into this today. Like, this is not for everyone, right? And that's okay. But I text Shannon this morning, if one person takes one nugget, one piece of information from this podcast, and they do something spectacular with it, it's a win. It's worth everything. It's worth the time. It's worth the money. You know, it's worth bringing Calvin in to do what he does. It's all worth it.
Big, sexy Calvin back there.
Calvin's the man.
We got to get you on a mic so you can start to chime in with your 2 cents every once in a while. I think every great podcast, they always have
at some point,
they have the guy on the mic to chime in. Next season, Calvin's going to have a mic.
Absolutely.
No, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
No, it's vastly, vastly important. So we are just finished up. Working comes before the belief, and that delay of gratification that you're going to have. Talking about transitioning to create your own economy. And I think the next episode is really going to focus on the applicable steps. We talked about recession being a mindset and how to have your own economy, but now we have to actually talk about what that means. Like, how do you create your own economy? Like, what type of investments do you need to make? How do you create something that's self-sustaining that can then fuel your family, your future, and your legacy?
Yeah. Okay, let's get into it.